Imagine for a moment what it means to be a pioneer. We've read about pioneers in history books, have we not? About the famous first that came to America or those that were the first to go west. We think of pioneers as discovering new inventions or new technologies. And all of that is true. Sometimes we do not think that some of the people in the Bible are pioneers when actually they very much were. What if I were to tell you that the very wise men of the Christmas story were pioneers? We just don't tend to think of it that way. But pioneers can do amazing things even if you never heard their names before. I want to tell you about one such pioneer. His name was Bruce McCandless. Bruce was born in 1937. He became an astronaut at the very young age of 28 at a time where NASA was just formed. It was the early mid-1960s, and we just got into space. And the next thing you know, we're doing pretty neat things like traveling to the moon. Well, because he was young and he was a pioneer, you would think maybe he would be that first, but he wasn't. He helped with the very Apollo 11 mission that put Neil Armstrong as the first on the moon, but he wasn't a pioneer there. And Bruce McCandless had still worked for NASA, did some pretty cool things, but was never the first of a famous first. That is until 1984, where he did something that, well, most people don't even know about, but still was one of the bravest things a pioneer could do in the history of our country. You see, in 1984, Bruce McCandless was the first to spacewalk without a tether. And you might think that that's not that big a deal, but the tether is your very lifeline. If the tether is cut, you float out into space and there's no one to rescue you. Now, he was wearing a specific suit that had propellant that we actually use, Elon Musk does, in the Falcon 9 rockets today. It's a similar technology, but the thing is that he was the first to use it, and for 8 hours he did it successfully. But if any one little thing went wrong in that suit, there would be the chance he never made it back to the ship and he would die in a coffin known as a spacesuit. Scary stuff being a pioneer. I don't know if you thought about it, but gosh, the wise men had scary stuff happening in their work as a pioneer. Well, before we get into that, let's just look at what the wise men were facing here for a moment. First of all, they were hundreds of miles to the east, and they were going to be coming west, likely coming to a land they'd never been to before, maybe heard a little bit about. They get this prophecy that there was this king born in Israel, but they have no idea the nature of the king, what he would look like, exactly where he would be. And apparently they're the only ones that get the prophecy because no one else had heard about it. They go these hundreds of miles to Jerusalem, and when they inquire about it, no one knows anything except that once word got to the king himself, King Herod, who was an insane madman in the very late parts of his life, oh man, did all break loose. And the wise men were facing risks they never thought they would face. But that's what pioneers do. Because in the effort to pursue a prize, they take a risk. More on that in a moment. But now that we understand that being a wise man was a pioneer of sorts, let's see how that interplays with our own walk with Jesus and about how walking with Jesus can be our own form of pioneering. First, we have to understand what a pioneer is. Number one, pioneers pursue a prize. We see in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24, it says, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize." You see, pioneers are always wanting something very valuable, and that's why they're willing to take these risks. The 49ers that went to California for the gold prospecting and the gold rush, well, they were willing to take the risk. Others are pioneers to be the biggest, the fastest, or the first, to invent a light bulb or to invent a combustion engine. You get the idea. Well, the wise men were seeking a prize as well, but the interesting thing is that the prize, they weren't even sure what all it entailed. They just knew it was a king and it was Israel and it was something special. But it wouldn't be a prize that they would collect for themselves. It would be a prize that they would honor. Now let me read that word again, 1 Corinthians 9:24. Run in such a way as to get the prize. That's what the wise men were doing. That's what we're called to do in our own walk with Jesus. Make it the most important prize we ever seek to pursue, and be a pioneer to do it, even if it means taking risks. Pioneers pursue a prize, that's number one. Number two, pioneers face challenges. When you go where no one has gone before, you will face a challenge. The entire Star Trek saga is about going where no one has gone before, facing all these sorts of challenges. Sometimes you win, and sometimes you don't. And the wise men face such. I mean, after all, they're going to a place to where they don't know if they're going to find a friend or a foe or a foreigner. They actually face a force in King Herod that was one of the most ruthless forces in the Middle East of his day. What an incredible risk. The wise men knew that they needed to go to Jerusalem. They didn't know anywhere else. And actually, it wasn't even Jerusalem, but eventually it would be Bethlehem, which they were instructed when the others who looked at prophecies from long ago in the book of Micah said, but this new king would come from Bethlehem of Judea. And of course, the wise men had no idea of the horrors of Herod. King Herod, who killed his own family, who killed hundreds of other people, who was stark raving mad the last few years of his life, who killed infants just to protect his throne. That's what the wise men were facing, and they had no idea. That's the challenges that they endured. We will face challenges in our own walk with Jesus. It may not be anything remotely close to what the wise men faced, but there'll still be challenges. There'll be illnesses, there'll be doubts, there'll be struggles, there'll be people who will reject you, that won't want any part of you. But this is important to understand. Paul says it beautifully. He says, suffering produces perseverance, perseverance produces character, character produces hope, and hope does not disappoint us. Romans 5, verses 3 and 4. We will face challenges, but pioneers also always seek. Very important to remember this. Wise men always seek Him. We must always seek Him. Wise men pursued the prize, and they didn't stop until they found it. Neither should we. I love what Paul says in 2 Timothy 4 through 7. He said this, I fought the good fight, I finished the race, I kept the faith. In other words, his whole ministry, he pursued and he pursued and he didn't give up. We must be the same. We must always seek Him. Every single day, we must seek Jesus. The more we seek Jesus, despite the obstacle, the more we grow, the more we love, and the more we're given this incredible prize known as eternal life. In a world full of people who love to be the first, the best, the most, let Jesus be your first. Let Jesus be your prize. Let Jesus be your seek. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. That is the journey of faith we must take.